A duck walked up to a lemonade stand and he said to the man running the stand, "Hey, bump, 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 got any grapes?"
Good morning all, you're on Bound for Glory on Sin. I'm Jordan.
I'm Joe.
Matt Marsden.
Matt Joyce.
And Peter. How are we going today, boys?
Not too bad. Unfortunately, the man running the stand didn't have any grapes, or otherwise West Coast would have ducked.
Oh, smooth.
So let's talk about Saints Crows from last night. It was obviously a ladder. Yeah, snooze fest. Until the last 10 minutes, and then to say that it was a 4-point game and it's being pumped as a 4-point game, it wasn't a 4-point game. It was a 5-goal win with a late boring comeback and a goal on the siren to make the margin look like it was close.
And bad spelling by the security squad.
Yeah, but we
Too near.
to nigger. No, but look, it was as far as the ladder goes. I mean, if Adelaide had have lost, I think they would have been fourth or just margining the
Yeah, it's getting close.
top
It's a big gap, isn't it? Like, top 4 are set, and then 5 to 8 are sort of all fighting for it.
I think there's the top 4 is pretty much one team might drop down, one team might get up. But as far as the bottom half of the top 4, it's wide open. How many teams that are outside the 8 that we would have thought would have made the top 8? It's just unbelievable.
So right now Sydney are in the top 4, aren't they? So
They've been in the top 4 all year.
yeah, I know.
Just
I think I don't know what the ladder looks like at the moment. I know after last night, Adelaide are there, Collingwood are there,
West Coast.
and Sydney. I think
Yeah,
that's how the top 4 is.
yeah. West Coast, Adelaide, Collingwood, Sydney in that order. So
I really hope Essendon drop out. Oh, that would be so good.
I think as far as Essendon go, I think we'll cover it a bit more later. But as far as Essendon go, they will run out of legs. It's just obvious that they're going to run. They look tired. Just the way we're looking at them, they look tired.
The weapon's been working them too hard.
For God's sake.
it's the old sort of thing where they do the hard running pre-season, and that happened for several teams.
But see, they've done that for the last 3 or 4 seasons, and every single year it was, let's have this big pre-season. Oh, wait, we're getting tired halfway through the season. All right, so to improve our fitness, we'll have a big pre-season. That's not how it works.
See, I remember discussing with an Essendon supporter last year when they started off so well, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're good for top 4. Look at this, we're going to go right." And I'm just like, "Yeah, by the end of the year, you'll probably just sneak into the 8, just make it in." And yeah,
To think about it though, they've lost to Collingwood by a point, Melbourne by 6 points, and Swans by 4. So if they kick straight, they could be on top of the ladder.
yeah, no, like I mean that's it happens with every team. There's a few good sort of teams that have a bit of luck, and then there's others that don't. Like Essendon were having a bit of luck earlier in the year, and then again.
What do we make of the Crows at the moment? They obviously had a good start to the year, but most of their good performances have been at Amy Stadium.
I think they're definitely doing quite well. One thing I have noticed is obviously the media's hyped up Sloane and Dangerfield a lot, but all of their performances, they've had a lot of consistent players this year. They haven't been relying on just a couple of people.
I think Scott Thompson is probably one of the favourites for the Brownlow.
He is gold.
Yeah, okay.
Also, to say that Dangerfield is the next Judd is pretty much a terrible comment. 1, because Judd isn't all that great anymore, and 2, because Dangerfield had 2 good games, and most of those touches that he got in those games were cheapies in the last quarter.
Well, when do Adelaide play West Coast so he can get tagged out of the game by Scott Selwood? Then he can be the next Judd.
No, I'll pay that.
And Dangerfield tends to have this brilliant game every now and again. Doesn't do much for about 5 or 6 weeks, and then has this brilliant game, like he did against Geelong, I think, last year, where he kicked like 5 goals, had 32 disposals. Everyone's like, "Oh, here he comes," and then he fades back out. So.
It's reactive media is what it is. If you see a good player, they think, "Oh, we want to be the first to predict that this guy's going to be a champion." And everybody just races. That's what they do with everything. Every time somebody does anything. If John Patton kicks 5 goals today.
When
if he kicks it back today, everyone's going to say he's the next best. He's the next Jonathan
they're already
Brown.
calling him
Yeah,
John
they've been
Brown.
calling that since early last year.
Let's not forget that the probably worst call of all time was Tim Lane last year when Bulldogs were up by a few goals against
Era's
Geelong.
over.
Yep, Geelong's era's over, he said. And then all of a sudden, it didn't take long for him to be proved completely wrong.
Geelong won that game by 100 points.
Yeah, no, they came back and won by 100.
So what about the Saints then? If Adelaide are looking pretty good, what about the Saints? I think they're just in the top 8 now, but with a few teams to still play. Yeah, they're just in the top 8.
They lack that really big defender, so Rewalt got hold of them, Tippett got hold of them. They just lack that big defender. Blake's not a real Hulk-like Rutten.
Blake had a terrible game last
Yeah, should have put him in the ruck.
Oh, for God's sake.
No Brownlow votes for Blake.
Yeah.
Just looking at the ladder at the moment, the teams in 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th all could make the top 8. In 9th, Carlton, 10th, Freo, 11, Richmond, 12, North Melbourne.
Yeah.
So there's 4 teams that really will be vying for. I mean, the points, they're not that far out. I think North Melbourne in 12th are 2 games out of the top 8.
All of which of those teams, they're not really struggling massively with injuries. I mean, Carazzo and Scotland came back this week, so the Blues are looking like they could easily sneak back into the 8.
And that was a huge difference in the way that they played, in my opinion. Carazzo's a really good player now.
Carazzo, as far as Carlton go, without Carazzo, they're stuffed because they don't have anybody that can run with somebody.
I would
And
have thought Armfield would... No, I'm being serious, actually. I'm not taking it.
I'll keep my opinions on.
Well, he's
personal-
better than Joseph.
Yeah, anything's better. Okay, no, I wasn't going to say anything about it. All right, well, about West Coast and Carlton, what do we make of West Coast after that? Because I think they haven't lost at Patterson's for about 17 games now.
It's 18 now.
I think it's 17 now. Thank you. I did my research.
Well, you're prone to losing there, so it's all right.
He's trying to hurt me this morning. So yeah, West Coast sitting nicely in first after that win on Thursday. Can they win the premiership?
Yeah.
You see, I think they're 2 favourites with them and Collingwood. I don't think they're going to win the premiership.
Yeah, well, at the start of the year, that's who I had of my tip for the premiership, and I got laughed at by everyone here. So just out of interest, I'm just reminding people. But yeah, like they're going along nicely considering they're missing half a forward line. So
If they finish in the top 2, they'll get 2 home finals, and you presume they'll go into the grand final.
Yeah.
Well, you said they're missing half their forward line, but they've still got a better forward line than anyone else, so it's kind of,
As far as
I
I'm
think it's
concerned,
the resurgence of I think it's the resurgence of Dean Cox. He's gone down since Josh Kennedy's gone down. He just marks deep in the forward line.
I think my theory is that if you can't win in Melbourne, you can't win a premiership. And at the moment, West Coast struggle to win in Melbourne, Sydney struggle to win in Melbourne, and Adelaide often struggle to win in Melbourne.
Adelaide's
also.
better.
Adelaide's better, but they still, if you look at their home record in comparison to their record away in Melbourne, Sydney's is appalling.
Yeah.
Etihad, they can win it. They can't win at MC. They just can't win there.
And it's interesting to note the one premiership Sydney did win was against West Coast,
Yeah.
and vice versa, West Coast this century anyway.
So what we're saying is Collingwood's got the flag won if they make it.
Yeah.
No. Lid on.
No.
We're not Richmond.
No. Hey, we as supporters were keeping the lid firmly on, and it's the media that just flip out and say, top 8, what are they going to do?
Top 4,
Yeah.
premiership contenders.
That was David
That
King.
was North the start of the year,
Yeah.
saying they'll make the top 4. Thank you. That's pretty.
Ben Cunnington.
You'd want to play well if you make that kind of statement, but
I tipped Freo for 5th, so yeah.
I had Freo
Possible.
missing the 8. Where are they at the moment?
Who?
10.
10? Okay, just thought I'd pop that up as well.
If GWS knock off Richmond,
Oh.
what will happen?
Honestly, no, you can have a giggle,
I
but
will
it's
take
very
a visit to the Westgate.
Because I remember a couple of weeks ago you said, wouldn't lose to Freo.
Well, I didn't think we would.
Well, right.
I didn't factor in Rain and Ross Lyon. So.
Right now, Gold Coast only have a 100% winning record over Richmond. No
Yeah.
other team that have 100%
Only,
Richmond.
that's true.
So, and last year I remember Hardwick was saying he might have rested Rewalt for the game, and then they ended up losing it. So, which was a bit.
Oh, we were just terrible that time.
You see, I honestly, everyone keeps saying, "Oh, Gold Coast could beat North Melbourne." I think North Melbourne's going to comfortably beat Gold Coast, and GWS might beat Richmond.
Yeah.
Mostly because of the Sheedy factor. In that Gold Coast seem to be coasting, whereas Sheedy is pushing the GWS kids to give everything every single week, and he's not going to rest. It's not like he doesn't win a game and say that's it for the season. Nice job. They'll keep going. So I really honestly wouldn't be shocked in front of a home crowd at the new ground if they were to win.
Apparently, it's a great ground for spectators as well. The old
It looks good, except for the stupid bloody scoreboard behind the
Oh, the goal.
the big egg-shaped, stupid-looking satellite, futuristic.
Wait,
thing.
is it right behind the
It's
goal?
right behind the goal, so you can
Oh,
see
so
yourself.
Jack Rewalt will be able to...
Yeah. Jack Rewalt will try and mark backwards so he can see his mark when he's in the goal square now.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered the other three teams. How about Carlton? They're hanging out of the top 8. They have, 6 weeks ago, people had them locked in almost for top 4.
I did. I tipped them for second at the start of the year. So it's very disappointing.
I think I had them for 7th at the start of the year, but I wasn't quite sure where they were.
Why?
Why?
7th?
Why not support?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, where are they at the moment? Like,
Not 7th, so you're wrong.
I overrated them then. No, like they're gonna win some more games. I'm just saying I didn't have them as top 4. Like they're a good side. I'm just saying that not everyone had them penciled in for top 4. I had West Coast, which everyone buried me for.
No, I didn't bury you. I had them top 4.
Okay. I had them first, but alright.
Where's Jared White?
Apparently he's never going to play again.
He comes back from an injury, he either gets suspended or he hurts himself again. So
He's the new Cozzy.
oh yay, fun, exciting, because we all enjoy clones of Cozzy, don't we? Because he's obviously fulfilled his potential.
Oh,
as a
how good
great
was this
people.
snapshot last night? Oh, yeah.
They choked hard last night. They lost by 4 points. It wasn't really a close game, but had they kicked, 1 or 2 of those goals, they would have won relatively comfortably.
I saw 3 that they could have gotten. It was
That was steady.
and Armitage had one that was pretty gettable, and Cozzy.
Right, fellas, I reckon we should head off to a break. Just hit up some SYN messages.
Did you know that Paul McCartney from the Beatles actually died in 1966 and was replaced by the Paul McCartney lookalike with surgical adjustments done to his face?
No way.
Yes way. The proof of this is placed in many of the Beatles' other albums. You can see on the front of Rubber Soul that they're looking out into Paul's grave, or on the cover of Magic Mystery Tour when Paul is the only one dressed in black. Also, on the great track number 9, if you play it backwards very slow, you can hear them say, Paul is dead. Paul is dead.
That sounds like some very well substantiated evidence.
I believe so. Sadly though, George Harrison is unable to do an interview with us.
If you want more awesome conspiracy theories, listen to The Conspiracy Campfire
1 p.m. Saturdays
on SYN.
That's not a Bantosaurus. This is a Bantosaurus.
3 to 4:30, Tuesdays on SYN.
Alright, you're back on Bound for Glory on SYN. Text us in on 0427 767 767. I believe, Matt, you're going to be talking more about the Eagles.
Yeah. Eagles and umpires, unfortunately. I've been
And
trying
ducks.
to bite my tongue. Yeah, the old
Prepare for
ducks.
the butthurt.
Oh, you're trying to hurt me today. You're trying to hurt me. Look, I don't even know where to start. An amazing stat that was going around before the West Coast Carlton game was the Eagles had not lost at Patterson Stadium in the last 16, now 17 games there. I had heard plenty of complaining from supporters of other teams about how bad the umpiring and pandering for free kicks was, but had never really kind of taken it on board. On Thursday night, I got a first-hand view of it, and in all my years of being both an observer and supporter, I've never been more genuinely disgusted in what I saw during a game of football. My first thought was that I was just doing the whole biased supporter thing in that our team lost. I was trying to find excuses for it kind of thing. So after the game, I went back and had a look at some statistics and footage from previous West Coast home games this season. And what I came up with, I was even more genuinely disgusted with. There was plenty of talk about West Coast's favourable free kick count at home. At home so far this season, West Coast have been paid a mammoth total of 161 free kicks for and 97 against. That difference is staggering in itself. I don't understand. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Is that a loss for words?
In West Coast in West Coast 6 home games so far this season, only 9 different field umpires have officiated their games. So that's just consider that. Have 6 games and only a total of 9 have rotated. There's 3 umpires obviously per game, and only 9 have officiated their home games. Of those 9, 5 have umpired multiple games. There is one umpire that I will mention in particular because I do have genuine worries about the intentions of this one man. Umpire Luke Farmer, who is based in WA, has umpired 5 out of 6 West Coast home games so far this season. 5 out of 6. How that is allowed for one man to umpire who's based in WA, he lives in WA, is allowed to umpire a local team's home game 5 out of 6 times is no less than a travesty, an embarrassment, and just a disgrace, to be honest. Obviously, this man isn't responsible for the massive difference in frees for and against, but he is likely to favour the home side if he is continuously put in the same role, because he adapts to the crowd. He becomes part of the environment. And with West Coast's whole ducking for free kicks thing, it's harder for him as well. It's not just having a crack at the umpires here. It's also, it comes back onto West Coast as well. Some of the antics that they tried to pull on Thursday and got away with, it's terrible. I looked up the definition of cheating. So cheating, and it is to unlawfully try and in fact, I'm actually going to get the definition out here because I had it looked up and it basically sums it up perfectly. Here you go. To cheat. Act dishonestly or unfairly in order to gain an advantage, especially in a game or examination.
I would have thought it had a picture of Ashton Hams there or something.
It's what they're doing. You could just say that it's twisting of the rules or whatever, but it's genuine cheating.
Well, for anyone who's seen the Jack Darling footage, that is as damning as it gets.
I have lost complete respect for Jack Darling and Luke Shuey as footballers. In the way that they get the ball, and if someone's near them, they drop to their knees and try to get that high contact.
I think if anyone hasn't, I suggest you watch it because, there's Leroy Jetta staging, and then there's what Jack Darling did, which is beyond staging. It is just literally
for those that haven't seen it, I'll describe it. Heath Scotland wraps up Jack Darling in a tackle around his waist. He's pinned his arms, and Jack Darling flops back as though he's been super kicked in the face. And he flopped it. And the worst thing about the whole thing is that he ran into the contest with an arm up to fend off the player, and then he dropped to his knees faster than you wouldn't believe, and the umpire didn't call holding the ball. The understanding of the definition for me is that if you take on a player and you don't beat them and you don't dispose of the ball in time or incorrectly, it's holding the ball. Is that not right?
That's correct.
I think the moment that someone takes on a player, regardless, once you've taken the initiative to take on a player, regardless of whether you get through that tackle, it's holding the ball.
And this is why general supporters get annoyed with umpires. And there was Andrew Demetrio made a comment on Friday morning about there'll be zero tolerance regarding criticisms of umpires. Well, there wouldn't be criticisms of umpires if you took care of the situation and cut it at the source. The problem isn't that people can, because Mark Murphy and Jeremy later made comments on Twitter regarding the umpire. That's not the problem. It isn't that people have an issue with it. It's the fact that there is an issue to start with. There shouldn't be. It's really not that hard to see if you see somebody take on a player and not get the ball away, for it to be called holding the ball.
Yeah. Surely
they've got to understand the definition of it. It doesn't matter who's playing. You've got to understand and be consistent, because there's Jack Darling taking on a player, and then there's that joke of a free kick that was paid in West Coast's goal square because Aaron Joseph picked up the ball, was immediately tackled, the ball spills out underneath the contest, and it's holding the ball.
And I think Jack Darling actually pulled it back into him. So
the worst thing is the camera clearly shows that it's Darling and Jamison wrestling for the ball outside the back, and it's a free kick.
No, that was bad, but what got me was the exact same thing happened at the other end of the ground 5 minutes later, and it wasn't a free kick, so it was pretty ridiculous. I will have to pull you up on the Shuey thing, though, for ducking. I really ducks, but I wouldn't say I've lost all respect for him, because some of the free kicks that he got for high contact were just, manoeuvring around in a contest.
Some of them, I'm not saying all the free kicks he gets are illegal or cheating, but a lot of, if you get the ball and your first instinct is to drop so that you get high contact, that's cheating. It's not like a smart tactic, it's just cheating.
But if the umpire pays it.
If the umpire pays it, then the umpire's sillier than the player is for dropping his head.
Wouldn't it be sweet if they did that tactic in a final and it was late in the game, close game, and they just, instead of trying to get the ball out to a free player, they go for that tactic, even if they get the free kick, but they're like 60, 70 out, and then the siren goes, rather than passing it on and having a potential chance. Wouldn't that just be sweet justice?
That would be good. It would be good if they played on and then the siren went. That would imagine if that happened.
There is an Essendon fan in here, in case you're wondering.
I also have another stat to throw at you as well. West Coast kicked 10 goals during the entire game. 4 of them were directly from free kicks. That's
And how was that 50 metres against Judd?
For God's sake. Both of them were 50 metres. There was one 50-metre penalty that's been talked about against Judd because he love-tapped somebody in the shoulder blade, and apparently... have you not seen a centre contest every time there's a bounce in the centre? Yeah. There's punching, there's grabbing, there's holding. And the other 50-metre penalty was against Andrew Carrazzo for shepherding somebody from running around to get the handball. And there's some slight holding there, I understand that. But again, have you seen the centre bounces? All taggers do are hold on to people. If you're going to pick out that, then pick out every single one. Don't pay some of them. Don't pay the ones that you think you see. Pay the ones that you know are there, and then continue to pay them for the entire game. It's not that hard.
Margetts was brazen enough to sort of remonstrate with Judd afterwards, saying, "Mate, that was mine."
Yeah, what umpire Dean Margetts did after he paid the free kick against Judd is the goal was kicked and everyone's running back to the centre. He runs about 20 metres to catch up with Judd, who's going to the centre, and he says, "No, that's not on. No, you didn't need to do that." And why? That's just asking for somebody to do something. And they're allowed to have a comment to players. They're allowed to backchat all they like. Yet Mark Murphy and Jeremy Laidler make comments regarding umpiring decisions on Twitter, and they get fines for it. It's what kind of world do we live in where you can't criticise people for making the wrong decision, yet they can continue to add fuel to the fire, I guess.
Yeah. All right, fellas. I reckon we should have a break for a second. Let's set up some sit-ups. Yeah.
Can't afford to get your own dubstep? Don't make your own. Listen to Drop the Bass, Sin's only dubstep and electro show, Mondays 8 till 10, all part of Sin's Indie Electro Night. It's free.
Dear, come listen to this.
What's that, dear?
Why, it's arts and culture on the wireless. Bring your monocle.
Oh, what's the show called?
Artsman, 4 p.m. Sundays on Sin.
Film,
Literature,
theatre,
interpretive dance,
installation art,
ballet,
opera,
visual art,
origami,
cabaret,
beat poetry,
street art,
mime,
puppetry,
burlesque.
baroque.
Artsman, Sin's Youth Sunday Arts Program, 4 p.m. Sundays on Sin.
Bound for Glory on Sin. Text in your thoughts on the West Coast ducking issue on 0427 767 767. Right now we're going to be talking about if there is a place for 2 ruckmen in the modern game. In recent times, obviously a more free-flowing game has opened up through the use of the exploitation of the forward press. Teams are starting to look for agile players, and I think it's been well established that the 3 ruckman strategy purely does not work. There's too many tall, lumbering men running around. Against Sydney, in the Essendon-Sydney game, after Tom Bellchambers went down, Patrick Ryder completely dominated Mumford in the centre square. Obviously, his high leap, Mumford couldn't match him, even though Mumford's a supreme ruckman. Bell Chambers didn't provide enough around the ground, and Ryder was wasted in the forward line in the first half. Teams that play with only one ruckman and a pinch hitter, the ruckman generally plays a lot better. Look at John Griffin when Sandilands goes down. He dominates, but he can't get a game with Sandilands in the team. Paddy Ryder and also Sam Jacobs last night had 45 hitouts, and he basically plays by himself. I think we should respark the debate regarding the sub rule. Whilst it allows for another running player to come on, what happens when a ruckman gets injured if you only have one ruckman in the game? I personally feel that two ruckmen can only be carried if they have the stamina to fill the hole down back and to also feel truly comfortable up forward like a Dean Cox, not just a person just going to sit down there like a Trent West.
Unless, of course, you're playing West Coast and you can take as many ruckmen as you like.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that works. That's an example because both players are able to play up forward, particularly Cox. Are both able to drift down there and play.
He's like an extra midfielder.
He is, both of them. They've both got extraordinary...
How good was that behind, by the way? Behind of the year.
If I see any more footage of that, I think I'm going to vomit. They have a highlight of a ruckman kicking him behind.
Well, that was
It's a behind.
It was
It's
a
that,
good
that's like, I
behind.
mean, if it went through for a goal, it would have been a...
Was it better than... I was going to say, was it better than Brent Harvey's behind of the century? Was it the one that he ran the whole...
No,
Going
field
to
and
North
then hit the post?
supporters, no.
No. But on topic, I personally I believe there is room for two ruckmen, but I don't believe that that ruckmen are ruckmen anymore. So the days of just the big fella that you're
Can't be the
recruiting to say
dinosaur.
here, yeah, that's it. You come to the team and knock the ball down. That's not what you do. If you want to be a ruckman, you need to be able to either go forward and kick goals or go back and defend. As far as I can't name a single ruckman in the game that isn't used in another position other than just ruck.
There's a few from the last couple of years, and that's why they've probably left.
Can you throw me some names?
Blake.
Some more names?
Let's think. There's probably someone from Port Adelaide.
Nobody that really jumps out though.
No one particularly.
I think the only one left is Dean Brogan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because, and he's what? How old is he now?
about 80.
He's
He's pushing
30
just a
going
bunch
on
of
94.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to be a ruckman, you need to be able to go for. I think and that's why West Coast dominate a lot because they have a very flexible ruck division. In that Nick Nat does those special, those really special sort of athletic sort of things. And Dean Cox is more traditional in that he's just a big guy that marks, kicks, and taps.
Weren't Essendon thinking of playing Hill, Bell Chambers, and Ryder?
They did last
Yeah,
year.
they did. And I think personally all of them can make a claim to be in our best 22 when they're fit and firing, but altogether having Hill and Bell Chambers, they're essentially the same player. I don't think we can carry them.
In the modern game, there's no room for three ruckmen in the team at all, unless one is the sub, but usually you want to have a pacey player as a sub, rather than bringing on a big, chunky, clunky friend from the... But yeah, look, as the modern game goes, you need to. It's basically if you have a pacey team, you're going to win. It's all about rebound. The modern game, if you can rebound, then you can score goals, rather than just a big guy tapping it down to a small guy kicking it forward to another big guy.
Can we call ruckman chunky, clunky friends from now on?
Substitute ruckman.
Well, I don't think anyone would actually have a ruckman as their substitute just for that reason. And I just wonder...
A what?
Sorry, if you,
A chunky, clunky friend.
Alright, we've lost everything now. But no, like, I wouldn't be surprised if in the future, as we get along, if we add any more subs or anything like that, I wouldn't be surprised if they just got a tall midfielder to do the rucking, rather than have a ruckman. And then, because theoretically, even if one doesn't jump, you've got an extra runner down to road the opposition's taps.
That's
and
what we did with Shane Tuck in 2007. It was so bad.
Well, that's what it could get to at the rate it's going. So
Sydney only play with one ruckman, don't they? Mumford.
Yeah.
Seaby's the reserves.
Poor Seaby. He left West Coast to get a game, and now he can't get a game at Sydney.
Same with Griffin.
Yeah. All right, now fellas, I believe we got an interview with Sydney's Nick Smith. Can we cue that one up?
We sure can.
I'm here with Sydney Swans defender Nick Smith. Nick, thanks for joining us today and Bound for Glory.
Thanks, it's great to be on here.
Brilliant. Now, you're a Melbourne boy, rookie drafted, then elevated to the senior list. How'd you find the transition from Melbourne to Sydney?
Yeah, it's definitely a hard transition. Just finishing school, not knowing anyone up in Sydney. The workload was pretty big when I went up there as well, so definitely found it pretty hard at first, but loving it now.
What have you enjoyed most about the Sydney Football Club since you've been there?
Probably the people around the club. I reckon when I first got there, Paul Roos was in charge, and the blokes like Leo Barry, Michael O'Loughlin, Brett Kirk, Craig Bolton, those type of blokes definitely made it a good thing.
Yeah. Have you appreciated the lack of intense media spotlight in Sydney?
Yeah, it's definitely good. It's not a lot of footy in the papers and that kind of thing, and I think it's good for the Swans, and it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Paul Roos before. It's well documented that he was a big fan of yours, and now you've got John Longmire as your coach. Explain to us some of the differences in methods and coaching styles of the two.
Well, I guess footy's changed a bit in the last few years, and sort of when John came in, he brought a new game plan in with him as well, so he's had a big teaching role. We've changed things up since Roosy left, so I think the main difference was how much horses had to change and implement.
Yeah, so there's aspects of your game style which are quite similar. There's still that, in inverted commas, there's the Sydney way. Was that an easy transition for the team, do you reckon, and you yourself?
It definitely took some getting used to. I know West Coast took a few years to get it going as well, so I think with anything new, it's hard for the older guys to change quickly as well. The new guys can probably adjust more quickly, but if you've been playing one way for a while, it's hard to change, I don't know.
And what do you consider yourself, a new guy or an old guy?
Yeah, I don't know. I just play.
What's it going to take for Sydney to go from sort of a solid top 8 team, which you've been in the last few years, and sort of in and around the mark, to a real premiership contender this year, do you reckon?
I think the young guys, that's where probably most of your improvement comes from. Blokes like Sam Reid keep improving, Luke Parker, Lewis Jetter's been really good for us this year. Real shame about Gary Rowan. We're looking forward to big things for him this year, but unfortunately that won't be the case. Look for that next year. But yeah, mainly the young guys improving, I think.
Yeah. Now take your mind back to last Saturday, Nick. What was going through your head as Essendon started piling the goals in the last quarter?
Yeah, definitely. They had a lot of momentum and that kind of thing. And we just couldn't shut them down. Just need to get back to basics. We did the review. There's just a couple of instances where we could have done things differently and changed their momentum.
Yeah. Was it a case of fatigue where you played so well for the first 3 quarters? Do you, as a team, you just took the foot off the pedal a little bit, or do you reckon Essendon actually just started to kick straight and play better football?
Probably a combination of both. They definitely lifted their intensity, and we didn't go with them. I'm not sure about if we were too tired or that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. You've played with some of the best small forwards and midfielders in recent memory, Brad Johnson, Steve Johnson and Stephen Milne, just to name a few. Who's the trickiest to sign for you and why, do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm not sure who's the toughest. I know Milne kicked a couple of goals on me the other week, which was a bit unfortunate, but they're all super players in their own right, and yeah, it's hard to split them.
Do you prefer it when they push high up the ground, or do you like playing deep?
It doesn't really worry me too much. Happy either way.
You've played 61 games now. Despite this, you've got a knack of going under the radar. You finished 6th in last year's Bob Skilton medal. You were the most improved player last year. What are your individual ambitions for the future? Are you keen to get more into the midfield, or are you quite happy sitting in defence?
I'm not too phased about where I play. Obviously, I want to try and improve in all facets of the game. Get the footy and join in a lot more, but also play that defensive, accountable role as well.
What do you see as your most important role in that sitting defence? Do you see yourself becoming more a running player to defence, a Ty Kennelly type, or really shutting an opponent down?
Yeah, I think that's my strength, more shutting down and playing as a tight defender, but also getting involved when I can as well. I think I can still improve on that.
You've got a bye this week, then a huge clash against Geelong on the following Friday night. How are you preparing yourself? You've got a fortnight to go. You're relaxing now, or what are you doing to prepare yourself for that game?
Yeah, so all the boys have got off from Monday this week until Friday this week, and then we'll train on Saturday, have a light session then, and really ramp it up from there. But expecting a sellout crowd, and it should be a good game.
Yeah. At the SCG as well, how much of an advantage do you reckon an oval the size of the SCG is to Sydney, seeing as you play there, every second or third week?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an advantage when you get the home crowd as well, and I think we've played pretty well this year at the the SCG, so hopefully that continues.
Yeah, and the wet weather as well was Dewey against the Western Bulldogs. You personally, do you like playing the wet weather? Does it suit your style of play, do you reckon?
No, I don't think it matters too much if it's wet or dry.
Which teammate, past or present, has been the greatest role model for you, do you reckon?
There's been some really good ones at the club. I'd say Brett Kirk or Craig Bolton for mine.
Both quality players.
Quality players and quality blokes as well.
And leaders as well?
Yeah.
You spoke about you coming back to Melbourne now, you're from Melbourne. You got any ambitions to come back to Melbourne and play footy here, or are you quite happy in Sydney?
Yeah, really happy in Sydney and not looking to move at all.
No, who would with Sydney Football Club playing tremendous football at the moment. Now it's time for 40 seconds with Nick Smith. Nick, in one word or less, describe the following people. Adam Goods.
Star.
Jared Crouch.
Underrated.
Paul Roos.
Good coach.
2 words. Dan Hannibal.
Chatterbox.
Lewis Roberts-Thompson.
Tough.
Kieran Jack.
Tight ass.
Very quick today, very nice. Speaking of quick, Surioli.
Quick.
Yeah. John Blakey.
Good coach.
Warwick Kappa, City legend.
Shorts.
Schwartz.
Little shorts.
Like thereof.
Yeah.
And Jude Bolton.
Tough.
Tough. So there's a common theme there, a lot of tough and hard players at Sydney Swans. Nick Smith, thanks for joining us today on Bound for Glory.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I'd like to thank Tom Morris for the interview with Sydney's Nick
It's
Smith.
his second interview with us. A magnificent new little reporter is Tom Morris.
Thank you, Etihad.
All right, we're going to read out a couple of texts we've got in. The first one, thanks to our good pal Eth down there.
As in down on the ladder there.
Yeah.
Melbourne, sorry.
Wink, wink. Luke Shuey has had 34 frees for and 7 against this year. Last year he had 40 for the whole year and 25 against. And new thing, it works.
Yeah, look, that says it all pretty much. You don't need to say anything after that. Let's speak for itself.
So he'd probably be close to on track for most frees record.
Get on him for the Brownlow.
And the second text we have in is about the umpires. There's not enough umpires and they don't get paid enough to take criticism we as fans give them. If they want perfection and the perfect candidates, pay them as much as doctors. Not going to happen.
I'm sorry.
Umpires don't save lives.
No.
Well,
They end them in some
Say
cases.
West Coast Live a few times on this. But I somewhat agree with that and I somewhat disagree. I agree in that they're not paid to take criticism. However, they're not paid enough. I disagree with that. It's a job. They choose to be umpires. I know there are fewer and fewer umpires coming through, but they choose to do this. It's honestly not a hard job. I'm sorry. You can say that. I've umpired before. I umpire a different sport as well, currently. It's not that hard to make a decision when you see something that's a free kick to say that's a free kick and that's not.
it's apparently there's a lot of umpires in the suburban leagues that, are much better quality than AFL umpires, but they don't get promoted because they can't bounce the ball, and it's like little things like that.
I think there was also another little trend on Thursday and Friday. Is the umpire was just throwing up the ball rather than bouncing it around. I like that. I like that a lot because the game's faster. I like anything that makes the game faster. But yeah, so I like that sort of little initiative there.
I mean, I don't see why the ball doesn't bounce and hit him in the head, because that could happen.
It
when they bounce.
I can't think about. I'm sorry, we're getting off track here. But as an umpire, I can't believe. I can't remember who it was. I think it was 2008 or 2009. He bounced it, and it knocked him in the noggin. And he looks at both of the ruckmen as though it was their fault. It's magnificent.
The only problem,
Probably on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah.
the only problem with umpiring is people have different opinions on each decision. So that could make it hard for umpires. Like if the crowd gets involved, you don't want to copy these.
So we're going to take a little bit of a break, just doing a couple of ads, and then we'll be back discussing the stadium's availability for 2013 round 1.
Sin opens its doors to young people of all kinds. Hundreds of schools, youth and community groups come to Sin each year. Our tours, workshops and programs are great for building teamwork, confidence and literacy skills. To find out about our education programs, head to sin.org.au/education or email training@syn.org.au.
Can't afford
afford to get your own dubstep? Don't make your own. Listen to Drop the Bass, Sin's only dubstep and electro show, Mondays 8 till 10, all a part of Sin's Indie Electro Night. It's free.
Sin, wait, what are we making again?
Radio.
Sin Radio.
Bound for Glory on Sin. You back with the boys. Joycey, I believe you're going to be talking about stadium availability.
Yes, I am, and mainly about the 2013 Round 1 availability. Apparently the MCG is not going to be available due to the Sheffield Shield final. So I think Cricket Australia have said that they don't want the game to be held at Etihad Stadium. They need it to be at MCG or another suitable ground, whatever a suitable ground is. I'm sure they're going to have to accommodate for the 1,000 people that are going to turn up for that. But mainly, what is it going to mean for the AFL? Obviously, there's the big Richmond-Carlton Round 1 season opener that they've got to deal with, and Dimitri has given them the option of move it to Etihad or hold it later. Now, if you move it to Etihad, it has a capacity of 53,000, and there's 80,000 people that go to the game. So, that's 27,000 that don't get in. And I believe it's a Carlton home game next year, so it's basically no Richmond fans that get in. So, quality plan there, Andrew. Or you can hold it later, which is a possibility. Just speaking from a Richmond perspective, it would be nice to play an easier team first up so that we don't have all the expectation, and maybe still hold the MCG as the first MCG game of the year. That would be nice, maybe. Or an alternative, maybe Richmond and Carlton can become the Good Friday fixture, make it a big traditional event. Steal something else from North Melbourne, that would be really good. So what does everyone else think are the best options for Round 1, 2013?
The best option is to tell Cricket Australia to harden up. It's going to be, 1,000, maybe 2,000 people showing up to a game of cricket at a ground with a capacity of 105,000 or something like that. And compare a ground that is allocated to a game, I have nothing wrong with the sport at all, it's not a crack at the sport, a game that will have 1,000 to 2,000 supporters in comparison to 70 to 85,000. Like, it's surely a no-brainer. Surely something can be figured. You can't hold that game at Etihad Stadium. Etihad is the second Melbourne stadium as far as where they go. You hold the big games at the MCG. You wouldn't say, let's play the grand final at Etihad. You wouldn't say, let's play the season opener at Etihad.
Theoretically, they could play the Sheffield Shield game at Gosh's Paddock and still fit them all there.
They could, that's it. There's a number of suburban grounds.
Park, probably.
Disney Park could do it.
All the VFL games could fit them.
I don't understand why it has to be the MCG. I understand the whole sentimental value thing, but as far as altering an entire AF, because if they can't play the season opener at the MCG, they'll either have to delay the start to the season or not play at the MCG for that first week, and you can't have a full week of not playing at the MCG, especially in the first round, because they don't play any NAB Cup games at the MCG. So it's that they keep that so that you can have the MCG for round 1. If you don't play any NAB Cup games at the MCG for the entire NAB Cup and then don't have round 1 as well, I just don't understand it either.
I think it's a problem this year, next year especially, because I think we're moving to have the season start a week earlier because the players are really pushing for 2 bye rounds next year, each team. So great news for Dream Teamers, yeah.
What is interesting news for Dream Teamers is we've got a text in from our mate Heath again. He says that the rumour is still growing that Campbell Brown is in serious doubt for the game today, and that Sexton is the last.
Please be true.
I thought Campbell Brown is captain.
It just means
delete your team.
It just means that North players will be safe behind the ball.
Yeah.
So
any other thoughts about the stadium deal?
Yeah, look, I went to a couple of 2020 games, Big Bash. A lot of them were held at Etihad Stadium. They drew a fair bit of popularity, at least 20,000 for each. And I don't think the Shield final is going to get all that much more. Maybe 30,000 at the very maximum. If this is capacity, they could easily hold that at Etihad. Or even the suburban grounds, as you said. But I think Etihad, because we're not just going to screw Cricket Australia over.
Cricket Australia will say the MCG is the Melbourne Cricket Ground.
It is. Yeah. We need to buy it off the...
And was that 30,000 over the 5 days, or?
But remember, this is only if Victoria makes that final. Otherwise, it'll be played up in Sydney or Queensland.
Oh,
or
that's
WA.
fine.
Oh, well, that's the thing. Like, but they say we can't make the change of venue then. But see, like, didn't they? They've done that before. Like a few weeks in advance. Like they've changed the venue during the season because of whatever reason. So I don't see why, if it was clear with a few weeks to go, they couldn't then say, "All right, everyone, you're at the MCG," and then just get those.
It makes very little sense. Now, before we rip into the previews, there is something that is on one of the big, nice spreads in Herald Sun. And it's a lovely little Photoshop picture of James Brayshaw on the head of Happy Gilmore, the Adam Sandler comedy golf movie thing. Because on the back of James Brayshaw, the story is James Brayshaw was at a I can't think of what the thing is. There you go. And he had to leave early because it was his birthday, and on the way out he dropped by his office and decided to have a little bit of putting practice in his office before he left. And apparently that's newsworthy.
It's worthy of a 2-page spread for
mine. Oh, I don't. Why? It has. Well, and they're saying, oh, this is another reason as to why Brayshaw isn't a capable leader. So it has nothing to do with it.
In the Sun as well. It's not even in the A.
No, that's the funny thing. It's not even our friend Caro making a comment on JB.
And just before we go to the previews, the other thing in that paper that I wanted to basically have a rant at is the back page that basically said the 6-day break, tired out the Saints, that's why they didn't win. The Saints were so tired that they were down by 34 points and managed to get back within 4. So thank you very much, Herald Sun, for not actually watching the match.
The 6-day break doesn't exist to anybody other than the mass media. It's this team's coming up against a team that's had a 12-day break. They're obviously not going to win because they've only had a 6-day break. How long in the game has there been a 6-day break? This isn't a new thing, and it is pumped up by the media as, this team has a 6-day break. They surely can't win. They train. They are prepared to play games. It's 6 days. One more day really isn't going to do that much. And the way that they make it out to be this massive, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Speaking of newspaper things, when are we going to get an update on Andrew Walker's hat?
Still waiting for part 2 as to whether he still owns that hat or not.
I think it'll get broken out in the preseason.
Just quickly on James Brayshaw. The media say he's not a leader, but back in 2007 when I didn't see anyone else put their hand up to save the club, to get Eugene aboard, to keep the club in Melbourne, isn't that a leader?
Caro's issue with North Melbourne is that they were meant to move and Brayshaw came in and they didn't. So now she looks like a fool for saying that they would move and they didn't because of what Brayshaw did. So she puts it on Brayshaw.
She holding a bit of a grudge.
Oh God!
A bit of a grudge.
Oh God! Yeah. Have you seen? There was a I can't.
There's a
we'll
website.
put it together, but there's a website. It's an archive of Caro's articles from early 2006 to early 2008, and it's completely. All of them are littered with quotes like "most likely moving to Gold Coast," "almost certain to move to Gold Coast." And even when the new administration came in, it was still most likely moving to Gold Coast, still possible of moving to Gold Coast. And she's just clutching the straws now, for God's sake. Just give it up. And give an apology, because the stuff that I'm sorry to go off on a tangent, but the stuff that she writes still about an issue that is dead and buried is just unbelievable. Like, this is news back in 2007 when there was no team on the Gold Coast and they were talking about it and there was money offered for them to go and they said no, we want to stay here. It's an old topic. They're not going anywhere. Give it up, for God's sake.
Just
previews time.
Just quickly, like on Footy Classified, she said, she doesn't need to call up like when she writes a story, she doesn't call up the source. Is that normal? Like, Pete, you study journalism.
Not for the age. I don't think she said she doesn't call up a source. I think she always has to get 2 sources. She doesn't call the person that she's writing the article about. That's what she said.
It's not crucially important. You'd hate to get your facts right. So,
shoot that photo. GWS Richmond at Etihad Stadium. As we mentioned before, that this could be the upset of the round. It's not a big round, but it could be an upset.
This may be the most boring round of the whole season.
You remember we said that about the Essendon Melbourne round? And 3 upsets.
But yeah, look, GWS Richmond, as I said before, I think GWS could pull off an upset here. Obviously, the debut of the #1 pick, Jonathan Patton, is there's a lot of pressure on him to kick a bag as well. So if he doesn't do that, he's obviously going to be another wasted first pick, of course. Israel.
The Rock.
He plays everywhere. He's chunky.
I don't think they quite know what they're doing with Israel at the moment. He's not the sub, so he's not a chunky friend. Yeah, I'm not sure they quite know what they're doing with Israel at the moment. It's like Carmichael Hunt at Gold Coast obviously has a role now. They've tailored him. They've found his niche. It's a fun niche. But they, yeah, friend Carmichael. We'll get into Carmichael later. Israel, he's sort of just there, I guess, and more it's just he's the convert that plays in the team. Cheddar. Yeah. Before he heads back to the
tips, boys.
Tips, I'll still stick with Richmond by 30 points, but yeah, I think it might be close. There's question marks over Jack Rewalt as well from the whole ankle thing last week.
But he's been really professional about his reading.
Yeah. So. I guess, we'll just have to see his name, so you just got to treat it as though he's playing. I'm sure GWS will.
Tigers, for me.
Hopefully Tigers.
Yeah.
Tigers by 52, so that we leapfrog Carlton into our rightful position of 9th.
And if Richmond lose, I think one of our techie guys will bring up Joyce's claim that they won't lose to or Freo.
Well, should we bring up a bunch of North quotes then from the start? Yeah.
That could be something for the.
Speaking of North, Gold Coast versus North Melbourne, Metricon Stadium, the only night game tonight. There's 2 games on a Saturday. That's pretty boring. Again, this one is also touted as a possible upset, mostly because it's at the home of Gold Coast, but they just don't look all that inspired, to be honest.
I think North are, no offence, boys, downhill skiers, and so they should thump Gold Coast.
Yeah, look, I think they should win and win comfortably because Gold Coast simply this year, they've obviously last year they had something to prove. GWS has come out this year. They've really they've played as well as they possibly can, and I think Gold Coast has. The pressure's been taken off them, but now it's starting to come back. They're stagnated.
And what's interesting is we've just got a text in from Eth. He must obviously be in a library somewhere, or looking up statistics. He's said last time Ablett had 20 disposals for Gold Coast, he had 41 disposals and 4 goals the next week against Adelaide.
And of course, I didn't put him captain.
Drew Petrie will be interesting. If he's ever going to kick a massive bag of goals this year, it'll be this year.
He will.
What about Lindsay?
Lindsay, I'm very interested to see how he goes because they brought him back on the team for his 100th game, I believe, and they said the problems with his kicking have been worked on. So I'm very interested to see how that comes off.
My biotechnology work at uni has been worked on. It doesn't mean I know it anymore.
Tips?
North usually.
Yeah, North round the table. Hawthorn Brisbane at the MCG tomorrow, 1:10.
Do you think Cyril's going to have his one good game of the year?
Possibly. He's already had it against St Kilda. But, of course, even if he doesn't have a good game, they'll get excited every time he gets in there of the ball. But, yeah, I digress. I don't think that Brisbane are prepared to handle the 2 forwards that are obviously in a good vein of form at the moment. And with Cyril. And Gunston had a good game last week as well.
Why wasn't he getting a game?
I don't understand why they've worked so hard to get a player that they're not going to play.
Are they going to put Merritt back, do you reckon, just to help out with the defence? I would think that's a logical option.
If you look at Hawthorn's forward line on paper, it's probably one of the most damaging in the competition. That's on paper it is, rather than the way that they work. But you've got Rioli and Gunston as small forwards, Roughhead, Franklin and Bruce. That's... What is that?
You know the song?
No, I don't.
Anyway,
Hawthorn by 30, I'll say.
Yeah, comfortably, massively.
How many will Buddy kick?
Probably not. I reckon this will be his inaccurate round.
1 goal, 50.
Yeah. Like, Hawthorn should win, but Brisbane have actually picked up their game a little bit lately, so it should be more competitive.
And the game of the round, Bulldogs Port.
This is
Lucky to get 10k.
They're doing something for Charlie Sutton before the game as well.
So they'll get a heap of Bulldogs.
Might get 11k
You're just making calls against everybody.
Sorry, when I'm on, I'm on. No, sorry. Alright, so...
There are great matches all over the pitch.
Brian Lake and Jay Schultz, that's going to be something. If it's anything you're going to match up, that's an incredible match.
I was talking more about Austin and Westhoff.
No, but seriously, Mark Austin's actually played quite well this year. I think he's been one of the
In
better.
comparison to what? I'm sorry, in
Carlton.
comparison to what? Yeah, well, that doesn't say a whole lot. And he's still, like, obviously he's getting a game, but they don't really have a lot down back to work with, I guess, so they have to play him. But he's done well with what he's got, but he's still not that great.
I think this is probably the toughest game to tip for the round.
Bulldogs,
Yeah, Bulldogs because it's in Melbourne. But yeah,
I think best on ground will be the man that's sitting on the wing in the Bound for Glory draft team of the century, Ryan Griffin. He's such a good player, and it was a steal where I picked him. We did a draft, by the way.
Just in case you didn't get what you're referring to. So
Didn't pick right or anything like
Tips.
Tips.
All pretty confident on the Dogs.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule Port out though.
No, I think Port is a lot better than a lot of people give them credit for. Well, they're starting to get their due credit, but
Where's the bar?
It's always a fun.
but it's in Melbourne.
Yeah.
So, right. So, Dogs. Yeah, is that consensus?
Yes.
All right, just rounding down to the end of the show, probably start hitting up some plugs. Sergeant Supercoach
On Twitter.
yeah, on Twitter, Big Footy News, Bound for Glory News. Matt, if you want to expand on
Oh,
that.
the Bound for Glory news. Here we go. Look, we've finally launched this. It's something we've talked about for a while. It's basically a news service that we're kicking off, basically fueled solely by supporters and giving, I guess, raw opinions from the people that actually experience it, rather than big shots in a nice office building sort of thing that are paid to and told what to write. That's not what. And yeah, that's it. It's not what we're trying to do. We want people to come along, say how they feel, and put it across, and we'll get it out there. Basically,
We'll make sure we ring the sources.
And we'll fix it.
Yeah. So I think that wraps it up. Just about.
Let's wrap it up.
Another week,
Yeah.
racking up the milestones at this stage.
Massive week this week in football.
Massive week.
As Eddie used to say.
So we're going to look forward to next week. Do we have
It'll pay
what we
up.
got planned?
I think we'll have Corey Galolio from Essendon Football Club next week as well.
Small forward.
So there you go. Essendon fans can look forward to that.
I think we're going to head off and pay homage to West Coast again for that magnificent effort on Thursday.